The night is still. A soft, gentle stillness rests over the wide desert. The air is warm, but not heavy. It moves slowly, like a quiet breath drifting across the land. Fine grains of sand shift ever so slightly, carried by a breeze that has traveled a long distance, touching hills and empty plains before arriving here. Above, the sky is deep and endless. Stars are scattered across it, small and steady. They do not flicker quickly. They shine with a calm and patient light, the same light that has been seen for generations, and for generations before that. There is no sound of machines. No sudden noise. Only silence, and time. Now, slowly, without any rush, the world begins to change. The edge of the sky softens. A faint line of pale light appears far in the distance. Night does not end quickly here. It fades gently, like a quiet thought drifting away. This is the land beside a great river. The river moves calmly, its surface smooth and dark in the early morning light. It does not hurry. It follows its path with quiet certainty, just as it has always done. This is the Nile. Along its banks, life begins to stir. The air carries a faint scent of wet earth and growing plants. Tall reeds stand near the water's edge, their thin leaves brushing softly against one another. Small ripples spread across the surface of the river as fish move below. A bird calls, once, then again. The sound is soft. It does not disturb the silence. It becomes part of it. Nearby, a village rests. Simple homes made of mud and straw sit close together. Their walls are smooth, shaped by careful hands, dried under the steady heat of the sun. The roofs are flat, some with bundles of reeds placed neatly on top. Inside these homes, people begin to wake. Not suddenly. Not all at once. One person rises quietly, then another. Movements are slow and familiar. There is no need to hurry. The day will unfold as it always does. A small fire is lit. The flame flickers gently, casting a soft glow against the walls. Grain is poured into a stone grinder. The steady sound begins low, rhythmic, almost soothing. Back and forth, again and again. It is a sound that has been heard every morning for many years. Bread is made. Water is carried. The day begins. Outside, the light grows stronger. The sun rises slowly above the horizon, spreading warmth across the land. The color of the sky shifts from pale gold to a soft, clear blue. Shadows stretch long across the ground, then slowly begin to shorten. People step outside their homes. They move calmly, speaking in low voices. There is a sense of routine here. A quiet understanding of what needs to be done. Some walk toward the river. Others move toward the fields. And some walk in a different direction. Away from the village. Out toward the open land, where the desert begins. There, in the distance, something unusual is taking place. At first, it does not seem remarkable. Just a group of people, gathered together, standing on a wide stretch of flat ground. But as the sun rises higher, the scene becomes clearer. The ground has been cleared. The sand has been brushed aside. The surface is smoother here than in the surrounding land. Men walk slowly across it, looking down, observing, measuring with their eyes. Some carry simple tools made of wood and stone. Others hold lengths of rope, pulled tight between them to mark straight lines. They move carefully. Nothing is rushed. This place has been chosen for a reason. It sits not too far from the river, but high enough that the water will never reach it. The ground beneath is firm. It does not shift easily. It holds steady. A man kneels and presses his hand against the earth. He feels its strength. He looks across the surface, his gaze moving slowly from one end to the other. There is a plan here. Not written in the way people might expect, but understood, shared, carried in the minds of those who stand here. They are not imagining something small. They are imagining something that will rise from this ground. Something that will take time. Many days. Many seasons. Many hands. The work begins quietly. Small groups move to different parts of the site. Some continue to smooth the ground, removing small stones and leveling uneven areas. Others begin to mark out the shape, straight edges, sharp corners, lines that meet with careful precision. They use simple methods. Water is poured into shallow channels to reveal where the land dips or rises. Where the water rests evenly, the surface is true. Where it gathers or flows, adjustments are made. It is slow work, but it is steady. The sun climbs higher. The warmth increases, but the people continue without complaint. They pause when needed, resting in small patches of shade, drinking water, then returning to their tasks. There is no sense of strain. Only patience. By midday, the outline has begun to appear. A large, perfect shape rests upon the ground. Still flat. Still quiet. But ready. Far away, near the rocky edges of the desert, another kind of work is taking place. The quarries. Here, the air feels different. It is filled with a soft, pale dust that rises each time stone is struck. The sound is steady and repetitive, stone against stone, again and again. Workers stand beside the rock face. They do not strike wildly. They strike with purpose. Each mark is placed carefully, forming lines along which the stone will separate. Wooden wedges are inserted into narrow cuts. Water is poured slowly over them. Time passes. The wood expands. The stone begins to respond. Not with a crack. Not with a break. But with a slow and quiet release. A block separates from the earth. Heavy. Solid. Still. Hands move over its surface, brushing away dust. Edges are shaped, smoothed, adjusted. The stone is prepared for its journey. That journey is not quick. There are no wheels. No sudden movement. The block is placed upon a wooden sledge. Ropes are secured. A group gathers. They stand together, feet pressed into the sand, bodies leaning slightly forward. And then, slowly, they begin to pull. The sledge moves. Just a little at first. Then more steadily. The sand beneath is firmed with water, making the path smoother. The weight is shared among many. No single person carries the burden alone. There is a rhythm to their movement. A quiet coordination. Step, and pull. Step, and pull. Their breathing becomes part of the rhythm. The sound is soft. Almost like the movement of the river. Back at the building site, the first stones begin to arrive. They are guided into place with care. Nothing is dropped. Nothing is forced. Wooden levers are used to lift and shift them. Small adjustments are made again and again until each stone rests exactly where it should. The first layer begins. It is low. Close to the ground. But it is strong. Each block fits closely with the next. There are no large gaps. The surface is even, stable, and carefully aligned. People step back and observe. They do not speak loudly. They simply look. They understand what is beginning here. The sun starts to lower. The light softens. Shadows grow longer once again. The work slows, then gently comes to a stop. Tools are set down. Ropes are coiled. People begin to walk back toward the river, toward the village, toward the quiet comfort of evening. Behind them, the first stones remain. Still. Silent. Resting on the earth. The beginning of something that will take many years to complete. The sky begins to darken. The first stars return, one by one. The air cools. And the land becomes quiet once more. The night passes gently. There is no sudden change, no sharp moment when darkness becomes day. Instead, the sky slowly softens again, just as it did before. The stars fade one by one, not disappearing all at once, but quietly stepping back as the first light returns. A pale glow stretches across the horizon. The desert air feels cool for a short while, carrying a calm that lingers before the warmth of the sun arrives again. The ground, which held the heat of the previous day, has released much of it into the night. For a brief time, everything feels balanced. Near the river, the village begins to wake once more. The same sounds return, soft and familiar. The steady grinding of grain. The quiet crackle of small fires. The low murmur of voices that do not rise above the morning air. Nothing feels rushed. Nothing feels different. And yet, just beyond the village, something continues to grow. At the building site, the stones placed the day before rest exactly where they were left. They have not shifted. They have not settled unevenly. They remain steady, forming the first layer of what will one day rise much higher. Workers begin to arrive again. They walk in small groups, their steps unhurried. Some carry tools over their shoulders. Others bring water, or simple bundles of food wrapped in cloth. Their movements are calm, as if they are returning to something familiar, something already understood. The light grows stronger. The edges of the stones become clearer. Their pale surfaces reflect the early sun in a soft and gentle way. The ground around them shows the marks of yesterday's work, smooth paths where sledges passed, faint lines where measurements were made. A man walks along the edge of the first layer. He moves slowly, his eyes following the straight line of the stones. He pauses at each corner, checking the angle, adjusting small pieces where needed. His hands move carefully, brushing away grains of sand, placing small stones beneath edges that require support. There is no impatience in his work. Only attention. Nearby, others prepare for the next stones. Ropes are uncoiled. Wooden sledges are inspected. The ground ahead is dampened again, water poured evenly to create a smoother path. The surface darkens slightly, holding the moisture just long enough to ease the movement of heavy weight. In the distance, the first group appears. They move together, slowly pulling another block of stone. Their pace is steady. There is no strain in their faces, only focus. Their steps fall into a shared rhythm, one that does not need to be spoken. It is felt, understood through repetition, through the quiet understanding that comes from working side by side. Step, and pull. Step, and pull. The sound of the sledge sliding over the sand is soft, almost like a whisper. It does not break the calm of the morning. It becomes part of it. As the stone reaches the site, more hands join in. They guide it into position, turning it slightly, adjusting its path. Wooden levers are placed beneath it. With careful pressure, the stone is lifted just enough to shift. It is lowered slowly. Gently. set into place beside the others. Another piece of the pattern is complete. Time moves forward, but it does not feel fast. The sun climbs higher into the sky, bringing warmth that settles across the land. The workers continue, but they do not push themselves beyond what the day allows. They understand the rhythm of the heat, the way it grows stronger as the sun rises. When the warmth becomes too great, they pause. Small groups gather in patches of shade, sometimes beneath simple cloth coverings stretched between wooden poles. They sit quietly, eating their food, bread that is dense and filling, onions that carry a sharp but familiar taste, and water that cools the body. There is little conversation. And when there is, it is soft. There is no need for many words. The work itself fills the space between them. After resting, they return. Not with urgency, but with the same steady pace. The building continues. Stone by stone. Layer by layer. Each block is placed with care, forming a surface that is both even and strong. The edges are aligned carefully, following lines that were set at the very beginning. Nothing is left to chance. The shape begins to rise, though only slightly. From a distance, it may still seem low against the wide desert. But standing near it, one can see the difference. The structure is no longer just a flat outline. It has form now. It has presence. And with each passing day, that presence grows. In the quarries, the work continues as well. The sound of stone being shaped fills the air in a slow and steady rhythm. Workers move along the rock face, marking new lines, preparing new blocks. Dust settles on their skin, on their tools, on the ground beneath their feet. They do not rush. They do not force the stone. They work with it. They understand its nature, its quiet strength. Each block that is freed begins the same journey. Placed upon a sledge. Pulled across the land. Guided by many hands. The path between the quarry and the building site becomes familiar. It is traveled again and again, worn slightly by repeated movement. The sand there is smoother now, shaped by the passing of weight over time. Back at the site, the structure continues to grow. The second layer begins to form. It rests upon the first, each stone carefully positioned so that the weight is shared evenly. The builders understand how the pressure moves downward, how each piece supports the others. There is a balance here. A quiet understanding of weight and form. The corners remain sharp. The lines remain straight. The work is checked again and again, not because there is doubt, but because there is care. As the day moves toward evening, the light begins to change. The bright tones of midday soften into warmer shades. The stones reflect this light in gentle hues, shifting from pale white to soft gold. Shadows stretch longer across the ground. The air begins to cool. The work slows. Not suddenly, but naturally. One task is finished. Then another. Tools are set aside. The final stone of the day is placed. Workers step back, looking at what has been done. There is no celebration. No loud expression. Only a quiet recognition. The structure is higher now than it was before. And it will be higher still. People begin to leave the site, walking back toward the river. Their movements are calm, their bodies tired but not strained. The day has been full, but not overwhelming. Behind them, the stones remain. Layer upon layer. Holding their place in silence. The sky deepens into evening. The first stars appear once more, steady and unchanged. The desert grows quiet again. And the pyramid, still small but growing, rests beneath the vast and endless sky. The night settles once more over the quiet land. The desert holds its silence gently, as if it has done so for countless evenings before. The air cools again, and the warmth of the day slowly drifts away into the open sky. The stones, which absorb the sun's heat, begin to release it back into the darkness, their surfaces growing calm and still. Above, the stars return. They appear in familiar patterns, steady and unchanging. The same stars that guided the builders before continue to watch over the land now. Their presence is quiet, but it is constant. Time passes softly. There is no rush in the night. And then, as before, the sky begins to change. A faint light grows along the horizon. The deep blue fades into something softer. The first hint of morning arrives without sound, without suddenness. Another day begins. Near the river, the village wakes again in its gentle way. The same rhythms return, as they always do. Hands move over stone grinders. Fires are lit. The scent of warm bread rises into the cool air. The people do not need to think about what comes next. They already know. The path of the day is familiar. And so, once more, they begin to walk. Toward the river. Toward the fields. And toward the growing structure in the distance. As the light spreads across the land, the pyramid becomes visible again. It is no longer just a low shape against the ground. It has begun to rise. Still modest in height, still quiet in its presence, but clearly different now. Its form is becoming more defined. The edges are sharper. The layers are more visible. It stands with a kind of calm certainty. At the site, the workers arrive in small groups. They take their places without instruction, each one moving toward a task they understand. Some prepare the ground around the structure, keeping it smooth and clear. Others move toward the sledges, ready to guide the next stones into place. The work continues as it always has. Slowly. Carefully. With steady hands and quiet focus. A new block arrives. It is guided along the prepared path, its weight pressing gently into the dampened sand. The ropes remain firm, the movement controlled. As it nears the structure, more hands join in, easing it into position. The higher layers now require a different kind of care. The stones must be lifted slightly before they can be placed. Wooden ramps begin to take shape. They are not steep. They rise gradually, built from packed earth and smaller stones. Their surfaces are smoothed and strengthened, allowing the sledges to move upward, step by step. The path is longer now. But the rhythm remains the same. Step, and pull. Step, and pull. The incline slows the movement, but it does not stop it. The workers adjust naturally, leaning a little more, moving with the same quiet coordination. At the top of the ramp, the stone is guided into place. Levers are used again. Small stones are placed beneath edges to support and adjust. The block is lowered gently, fitting closely with the others. Another layer grows. The shape becomes clearer. Each side begins to slope inward, just slightly. It is not yet the sharp form that will come later, but the intention is there. The structure is no longer only rising upward. It is beginning to narrow as it climbs. The builders pause at times to observe. They step back, looking along the edges, checking the alignment. Their eyes move carefully from one corner to another, from one layer to the next. They are not guessing. They are following a plan that lives in their understanding. Above them, the sun continues its steady path across the sky. The warmth increases, but the work does not become hurried. It continues at the same calm pace, shaped by the limits of the day. When the heat grows strong, the workers rest again. They sit together, sharing food and water. Some lean back against the stones, closing their eyes for a short while. Others remain sitting upright, looking out across the desert, their gaze steady and thoughtful. There is no tension here. Only a quiet balance between effort and rest. After some time, they return to their work. The ramps are extended slightly as the structure rises. More material is added, packed firmly, shaped carefully. The path remains smooth, allowing the sledges to move upward without sudden shifts. At the quarries, the work continues in the same steady way. New blocks are prepared. Each one shaped with care, its edges adjusted so that it will fit closely with the others. The workers know that even small differences can affect how the stones rest together. So they take their time. They listen to the sound of their tools against the stone. They feel the surface beneath their hands. When a block is ready, it begins its journey once more. Across the land. Toward the rising form. Back at the site, the pyramid grows a little more with each passing day. It does not change suddenly. It does not rise quickly. But it is always moving forward. Each layer adds something new. Each stone becomes part of something larger. The structure begins to cast a longer shadow now. In the afternoon, it stretches across the ground, reaching farther than before. The light touches its surface differently, revealing subtle variations in the stone, soft changes in color and texture. The builders notice these things. They do not speak of them often, but they see them. They understand how the structure interacts with the light, how it becomes part of the landscape in a new way. As the day moves toward evening, the work begins to slow once again. The final stones of the day are placed. The ramps are left as they are, ready for the next morning. Tools are gathered. Ropes are set aside. The workers step back. They look at what has been built. The pyramid now stands higher than a person. Higher than several people standing together. Its shape is clearer. Its presence stronger. And yet, it remains quiet. It does not demand attention. It simply exists. The sun lowers toward the horizon. The sky fills with warm colors: soft gold, gentle orange, faint traces of red. The stones reflect this light, glowing softly for a brief moment before the colors begin to fade. The workers begin their walk back. Their steps are slower now, shaped by the effort of the day. But there is no heaviness in their movement. Only a steady calm. Behind them, the pyramid remains. Layer upon layer. Stone upon stone. Rising slowly from the earth. The air cools again as evening settles. The first stars return. The desert grows still. And the structure, not yet complete, continues to rest beneath the wide and quiet sky, waiting for another day. The night lingers gently over the land. The air is cool again, carrying a quiet stillness that settles over the desert and the river alike. The surface of the Nile moves slowly in the darkness, reflecting faint lines of starlight that stretch and soften with each small ripple. The pyramid rests in silence. Its growing form stands against the sky, no longer a low shape, but not yet towering. Its edges are clear even in the dim light, a steady presence that has begun to belong to the land. Nothing moves around it now. No footsteps. No voices. Only the soft passage of time. As the hours pass, the sky begins its quiet transformation once more. The stars fade slowly, their light giving way to the gentle return of morning. The horizon brightens in a thin line, spreading gradually across the wide open space. Another day begins, just as the others have. In the village, the first signs of waking return. A door opens softly. Footsteps move across packed earth. The low sound of grain being ground begins again, steady and unbroken. Smoke rises in thin lines from small fires, carrying the scent of warm bread into the cool air. The rhythm of life continues. It does not change. It does not hurry. And soon, as before, the workers begin their walk toward the building site. They move in quiet groups, their shadows long in the early light. Some carry tools worn smooth by repeated use. Others carry water or simple food. Their steps follow familiar paths, shaped over time by many journeys. As the sun rises, the pyramid becomes fully visible again. It stands larger now than it did before. Not in a way that surprises, but in a way that feels steady and certain. Its layers are clearly defined, each one resting firmly upon the last. The ramps that lead upward have grown longer, stretching gently along one side. The workers arrive and begin without delay. There is no need for instruction. Each person understands their place within the work. Some move to the base, checking the lower stones. They run their hands along the edges, feeling for any shift, any small change that might need attention. When they find something, they adjust it carefully, adding support where needed. Others move to the ramps. They walk along their length, pressing down the surface, adding more material where it has worn away. The ramps must remain strong, able to carry the weight that passes over them again and again. Far in the distance, the movement from the quarries has already begun. Another stone is on its way. The sledge moves slowly across the desert, guided by many hands. The workers pulling it lean forward slightly, their bodies moving in a steady rhythm. The ropes remain taut, the movement controlled. The ground beneath the sledge is prepared ahead of time. Water is poured. Sand is pressed down. The path becomes smooth enough for the heavy load to glide forward, not easily, but steadily. Step, and pull. Step, and pull. The sound is quiet. A soft dragging against the earth. A steady breathing shared among many. As the stone reaches the base of the pyramid, the work becomes more delicate. The higher the structure grows, the more careful each movement must be. The stone is guided toward the ramp. The incline rises gently, but the weight remains the same. More hands join the effort. The pull becomes stronger, but never hurried. The workers move together, adjusting their steps to match one another. The sledge begins to climb. Slowly. Carefully. The ramp holds. At the top, the stone is brought to rest. Levers are placed beneath it. Small, controlled movements begin. The stone shifts slightly. Then again. Each motion is measured, guided by watchful eyes and practiced hands. It is turned. Aligned. Lowered into place. The sound it makes is soft, a quiet settling, a gentle meeting of surfaces. Another piece has joined the whole. The pyramid rises just a little more. As the day continues, this process repeats. Again and again. Stone arrives. Stone is lifted. Stone is placed. There is no sudden progress. No dramatic change. Only a steady, patient growth. The builders understand the weight of what they are creating. Not only the weight of the stones, but the weight of time. They know this work will not be finished quickly. They do not expect it to be. Each day is simply part of the whole. The sun climbs higher. The heat grows stronger. The air becomes still. The workers pause when needed, resting in the shade of the structure itself. The pyramid now casts enough shadow to provide brief relief from the sun. They sit quietly, their backs against the cool stone. They drink water slowly. They eat simple food. Some close their eyes for a moment, letting the stillness settle around them. Then, when they are ready, they return to the work. The ramps are extended again. The path upward grows longer. The structure continues to narrow as it rises, its sides sloping inward more clearly now. The shape is becoming unmistakable. From a distance, it begins to resemble the form it will one day hold fully. But for now, it remains unfinished. Still growing. Still changing. In the quarries, the steady rhythm continues as well. New stones are shaped with care. Each one prepared to fit within the growing structure. The workers there move with the same patience, the same quiet focus. They are part of the same effort, even though they are far away. Their work connects directly to what rises near the river. As the afternoon light begins to soften, the pyramid stands taller than before. Its shadow stretches farther across the desert. The edges of each layer catch the light in gentle ways, creating patterns of brightness and shade that shift slowly as the sun moves. The builders notice these patterns. They understand that the structure is not only strong, but also precise. Its form follows careful intention. Its lines remain true. As the day comes to an end, the work slows once more. The final stone is placed. The tools are set aside. The ropes are gathered. The ramps remain, ready for the next day's effort. The workers step back. They look at the pyramid. It stands quietly, rising from the earth, shaped by many hands over many days. There is no need for words. The progress is clear. The sun lowers. The sky fills with soft color. The air begins to cool again. And slowly, the workers turn and walk back toward the river. Their steps are steady. Their movements calm. Behind them, the pyramid remains. Still. Silent. Holding the weight of every stone, and every moment that has passed. The night begins to return. The stars appear once more. And the land settles again into quiet, as the work pauses, but never truly stops. The night passes as it always does. Slowly, gently, without interruption. The desert rests beneath the wide sky, holding its quiet like something familiar and well understood. The air cools and softens, and for a time, the land feels almost weightless, as if even the stones themselves are resting. The pyramid stands in stillness. It does not change during the night. It does not grow in darkness. And yet, it feels as though it is always becoming something more, simply by remaining where it is. Above, the stars drift across the sky in their slow, patient way. Their light touches the surface of the stone, faint and distant, barely visible, but present. And then, once again, the sky begins to lighten. Morning returns. Not with noise. Not with sudden motion. But with a quiet unfolding of light across the horizon. The village wakes as it always has. Soft footsteps. Low voices. The steady rhythm of hands at work. But today, as on many days before, we move a little closer to the people whose work begins long before the stones reach the pyramid. Far from the building site, near the rocky edge of the desert, the quarries begin to stir. Here, the land feels different. The air is drier. The ground is harder. Large stretches of stone rise from the earth, their surfaces uneven, marked by lines and natural breaks that have formed over countless years. Workers arrive in small groups. They carry tools that are simple, but shaped carefully for their purpose. Wooden handles, smooth from use. Stone hammers, heavy and balanced. Copper tools, worn but still strong enough to shape the surface of the rock. They move toward the stone face without hurry. They know what must be done. And so, the work begins. A man stands close to the rock, his hand resting lightly against its surface. He does not strike immediately. He pauses, feeling the stone, studying its natural lines. The stone is not treated as something to be forced. It is understood. Its strength, its direction, its quiet resistance. Marks are made along the surface. Straight lines, placed carefully. These lines guide the work that follows. They show where the stone will separate, where it will release itself from the larger mass. The first strikes come slowly. A measured rhythm begins. Tap, pause, tap, pause. The sound is not sharp or sudden. It is controlled. Repeated. Steady. Other workers join in, each one following the same quiet pattern. The air fills with the soft echo of stone being shaped, not broken, but guided. Dust rises gently with each movement. It settles on hands, on arms, on the ground below. The sun begins to climb higher, its light reaching into the quarry, touching the rough surfaces of the rock and revealing subtle changes in color: pale gold, soft beige, faint hints of white. The work continues. Small cuts become deeper. Lines become clearer. Wooden wedges are placed into the openings. Water is brought, poured slowly over the wood. Time passes. There is no rush. The workers step back. They wait. The wood begins to expand, slowly pressing outward against the stone. The pressure grows quietly, steadily, until the stone begins to respond. A faint sound. Not a crack. Not a break. But a soft shift. The stone separates. A large block rests free. It is still. Heavy. Silent. Hands move over its surface, brushing away dust. The edges are examined, adjusted where needed. Smaller tools are used to smooth rough areas, to shape the block so that it will fit closely with others. Each stone is prepared with care. Because once it leaves this place, it will become part of something larger. Something that must remain strong. Something that must endure. Nearby, another group prepares the next block. The process repeats. Not quickly. Not loudly. But with the same steady patience. The quarry is filled with this rhythm. A quiet harmony of work that does not change, that does not hurry, that simply continues. When a stone is ready, its journey begins. A wooden sledge is brought forward. The block is guided onto it with careful movements, lifted slightly, shifted into place. Ropes are secured around it, pulled tight. A group gathers. They take their positions. They do not speak much. They do not need to. The movement begins. Slowly. The sledge shifts. The sand beneath is prepared, dampened just enough to reduce resistance. The path ahead is clear, shaped by many previous journeys. Step, and pull. Step, and pull. The stone begins to move away from the quarry, leaving the place where it rested for so long. Beginning its path toward the pyramid. Back at the building site, the work continues in its steady way. The structure rises, layer by layer, each stone finding its place among the others. The ramps extend further, allowing the builders to reach higher points. The pyramid now stands clearly above the ground. Its shape is unmistakable. Its presence calm, but strong. Workers guide new stones into position, just as they have done many times before. The process is familiar now, repeated so often that it feels almost like a natural part of the day. And yet, no step is taken without care. No movement is careless. Each stone is treated with attention, with respect for its weight, for its role in the whole. As the stone from the quarry approaches, it joins the quiet rhythm of the site. It is guided toward the ramp, pulled upward, lifted into place, and slowly, gently, it becomes part of the structure. Another layer grows. Another moment passes. The sun moves across the sky. The light shifts. The air warms, then softens again as the day begins to fade. The workers continue, then pause, then continue again. Always steady. Always calm. As evening approaches, the work slows once more. The final tasks of the day are completed. The tools are set aside. The ropes are gathered. The ramps remain, waiting. The workers step back. They look at the pyramid. Not with surprise. Not with excitement. But with quiet understanding. They know what has been done. They know what remains. And they know that tomorrow will come, just as today did. The sun lowers. The sky softens. The desert cools. And once again, the land becomes still. The pyramid stands beneath the returning stars, holding within it the work of many hands, and the quiet passage of time. The night fades as it always does. Softly, without effort, without sound. The stars dim one by one, their quiet glow giving way to the pale light of morning. The desert releases the coolness it gathered through the night, and a gentle warmth begins to return. The pyramid stands unchanged in the early light. Still. Patient. Its surface holds the memory of yesterday's sun, and now it waits again, as if it understands that the day will bring more hands, more movement, more quiet progress. But before the stones reach this place, before they rise along the ramps and settle into position, there is another path. A slower path. A quieter one. The path of the river. The Nile moves steadily through the land, just as it always has. Its surface is calm in the early morning, reflecting the soft colors of the sky. The water does not rush. It flows in a way that feels almost still, carrying with it small ripples that shift gently with the breeze. Along its edges, life gathers. Reeds grow in clusters, their thin leaves swaying lightly. Birds move through the air in slow, easy arcs, their wings catching the morning light. The ground near the water is darker, richer, shaped by the presence of the river over many seasons. Boats rest along the banks. Long and narrow, made from wood, their surfaces worn smooth by time and use. Some are tied loosely to simple posts. Others drift slightly, held in place by gentle currents and careful hands. As the day begins, the workers arrive here as well. They move quietly, just as they do at the quarry and the building site. Their steps leave soft marks in the damp earth. Their hands reach for ropes, for tools, for the edges of the boats that will carry the stones. Not every stone travels only across the sand. Some come by water. From quarries farther away, where the land meets the river more closely, large blocks are brought to the water's edge. There, they are carefully loaded onto boats designed to carry great weight. The process is slow, careful, balanced. The stone is guided onto the wooden surface, its weight settling into place. The boat shifts slightly as it receives the load, dipping just enough to show the weight it now carries. But it holds. Strong. Steady. The workers adjust the ropes, securing the stone so it will not move as the boat travels. Every knot is checked. Every line is pulled tight. There is no room for carelessness here. The river may seem calm, but it must be respected. When everything is ready, the boat begins to move. Long poles are used to guide it away from the shore. The workers push gently against the riverbed, setting the vessel into motion. Once it reaches deeper water, sails may be raised when the wind allows, catching the soft breeze that moves across the surface. The journey is quiet. The water carries the boat steadily, without sudden movement. The surface ripples gently around the edges, creating a soft, continuous sound that blends with the air. Time passes slowly here. There is no urgency on the river. The workers aboard the boat move carefully, adjusting their positions, watching the water, feeling the movement beneath them. Some sit in silence. Others look toward the distant banks, where the land stretches out in calm, familiar patterns. The sun rises higher. Its reflection dances on the surface of the Nile, broken into small, shifting fragments by the movement of the water. The light is bright, but not harsh. It rests gently across the scene. As the boat travels, the pyramid is still far away. But the path is known. The river has been followed many times before. Eventually, the shoreline begins to change. The land near the building site becomes visible. The familiar shapes of the desert and the distant rise of the pyramid appear slowly, growing clearer as the boat approaches. At the river's edge near the site, workers are already waiting. They stand quietly, watching the approach. When the boat reaches the shore, the process begins again. Carefully. Slowly. The stone is unloaded. Ropes are secured. The block is guided from the boat onto a waiting sledge. The ground here is prepared, just as it is elsewhere. Dampened. Smoothed. Ready to receive the weight. The journey from water to land is short, but it is done with the same care as every other step. The stone is never rushed. It is always guided. Once it rests securely on the sledge, the next movement begins. Step, and pull. Step, and pull. The stone leaves the river behind. It moves toward the pyramid, following the same path that so many others have taken. Back at the structure, the work continues. The ramps stretch higher now. The layers are more numerous. The shape is becoming clearer with each passing day. The stone that traveled by water joins the others. It is pulled up the ramp. Lifted into place. Set gently among the growing layers. And once again, something that began far away becomes part of the whole. The river continues to flow. Unchanged. Steady. It does not hold on to what it carries. It simply allows it to pass. The workers return to their tasks. Some remain at the river, preparing for the next arrival. Others walk back toward the pyramid, their movements calm and familiar. The day unfolds as it always does. Work, rest, work again. The sun moves slowly across the sky. The light shifts. The air warms, then softens. As evening approaches, the river reflects the changing colors of the sky: soft gold, gentle orange, fading into deeper shades. The boats rest once more along the banks. The workers step away. The land grows quiet again. And the pyramid, now holding stones from both land and water, stands in stillness beneath the evening sky. Its form rises slowly. Its presence deepens. And the river, flowing beside it, continues its quiet path, just as it always has. The night returns once more, soft and unbroken. The desert settles into its familiar stillness, holding the cool air close to the ground. The river moves quietly nearby, its surface dark and smooth, reflecting only the faintest traces of starlight. The pyramid stands in silence. It has grown again. Not suddenly. Not in a way that draws attention. But in a steady, patient way that can be felt more than seen. Its form is clearer now. Its sides rise at gentle angles, each layer placed with care, each stone resting closely beside the next. And though the work pauses in the night, the sense of progress remains. As if the structure itself remembers every hand that has touched it. As if it holds time within its shape. The stars drift slowly across the sky. And then, as always, the first light begins to return. Morning arrives gently. The air softens. The horizon brightens. And the quiet rhythm of the day begins again. In the village, movement returns in small, familiar ways. Doors open. Footsteps pass over the ground. The sound of work begins, low and steady. The workers prepare themselves without hurry. They eat simple food. They drink water. They gather their tools. And then, together, they begin their walk once more. Toward the pyramid. Toward the rising form that has become part of their daily lives. As the sun lifts higher, the structure becomes fully visible again. It stands taller than before. Its sides are more defined. The slope of each face is now clearly visible, rising inward toward a point that is not yet reached. The ramps stretch along its sides, longer and more gradual, carefully built to support the increasing height. The workers arrive and take their places. And today, as on many days, their attention moves not only to lifting and placing, but to something quieter. Something less visible. The measure of precision. At the base of the pyramid, a few workers kneel beside the stones. They do not move large blocks. They do not pull ropes. Instead, they observe. They run their hands slowly along the edges of the stone, feeling the surface where one block meets another. Their fingers move carefully, sensing even the smallest unevenness. A slight shift. A tiny gap. Something that cannot be easily seen, but can be felt. When they find such a place, they begin to adjust it. Small stones are placed beneath edges. A lever is used gently, lifting just enough to allow for correction. Then the block is lowered again. Resting more evenly. More completely. This work is quiet. Slow. But it is essential. Because the strength of the pyramid does not come only from its size. It comes from how each piece fits with the others. Nearby, another group uses simple tools to check alignment. A length of cord is stretched along the edge of a layer. Pulled tight. Straight. The workers look along its line, comparing it to the edge of the stones. They adjust where needed, guiding each block into better position. There is no guesswork here. Only careful observation. Only patience. The sun continues to rise. Its light spreads across the surface of the pyramid, revealing the subtle details of its construction. Each layer casts a thin shadow over the one below it, creating soft lines that shift as the light changes. The workers notice these lines. They use them. The way the light falls can show where a surface is not perfectly even, where a small adjustment may be needed. In this way, the sun itself becomes part of the process. Not as a tool, but as a quiet guide. As the day continues, the familiar work of moving stones goes on. A new block arrives. It is pulled toward the ramp, guided upward, lifted into place. But even here, at the higher levels, precision remains important. The higher the pyramid grows, the more careful each placement must be. A small error at the base can become larger as the structure rises. So the builders remain attentive. They take their time. They pause often. They look. They feel. They adjust. The ramps themselves are also checked. Their surfaces must remain even, able to support the heavy loads that move along them. Workers walk the length of the ramps, pressing down loose areas, adding more material where needed. Everything is maintained. Everything is observed. Nothing is left to chance. The air grows warmer as the sun reaches its height. The workers rest in the shade of the structure, just as they have done before. The pyramid now provides more shade than it once did, its growing height offering longer stretches of cool ground. They sit quietly. They eat. They drink. Some close their eyes for a short time. The stillness of the moment is gentle, unbroken. Then, when the time feels right, they rise again. The work continues. The afternoon light softens slightly, and the pyramid continues to grow, layer by layer. Each stone is placed with care, each edge aligned with quiet precision. From a distance, the structure appears smooth, simple. But up close, the care within it becomes clear. Every surface has been considered. Every line has been guided. The builders do not speak of perfection. They simply work toward it. As the day begins to fade, the final stones are placed. The tools are set aside. The cords are rolled and carried away. The ramps remain, ready for another day. The workers step back. They look at the pyramid. Not just at its height, but at its form, its balance, its quiet harmony. The sun lowers toward the horizon. The light becomes softer, warmer. The shadows lengthen. The edges of the pyramid glow gently before fading into the cool tones of evening. The workers begin their walk back. Their steps are steady. Their movements calm. Behind them, the pyramid remains. Rising. Enduring. Shaped not only by strength, but by care. The night returns. The stars appear once more. And the land settles into silence, holding within it the quiet work of another day, and the steady measure of time. The afternoon settles gently over the small colonial town, as if time itself has decided to move just a little more slowly. The warmth of the sun softens, no longer sharp or bright, but mellow and golden. Shadows stretch longer now, slipping quietly across dirt paths, creeping up the sides of wooden homes, and reaching toward the open fields beyond. Inside the meeting house, the earlier gathering has ended. Benches sit empty once more, slightly out of place from where people had shifted and leaned. The quiet returns almost instantly, as though it had only stepped outside for a moment and now comes back in, settling into every corner. Outside, a few villagers linger. Two men stand near a fence, continuing a conversation that no longer seems urgent. Their voices are low, unhurried. One occasionally nods, the other pauses often, searching for the right words not because it matters greatly, but because there is no need to rush. Nearby, a woman adjusts a basket on her arm. She pauses, glances toward the sky, and then continues walking, her steps steady and familiar. The path beneath her feet is worn from years of the same journey, taken day after day without much thought. In the distance, the soft creak of a cartwheel can be heard again. It is the same farmer as before, returning now with less in his cart than when he left. The horse moves at the same patient pace, its rhythm unchanged. The farmer doesn't urge it forward. There is no need. The road will take them home just as it always has. A breeze drifts through the town, gentle enough to barely disturb anything, yet noticeable in the way it stirs loose strands of hair, nudges open shutters, and carries with it the faint scent of earth and wood smoke. Children who had once been lively and loud are quieter now. One sits on a step, tracing lines in the dust with a small stick. Another leans against a post, watching nothing in particular. Their energy has softened, not gone, just resting like everything else. Time here does not press forward. It unfolds. Moments are not counted or chased. They simply arrive, linger, and then slip away, leaving behind almost no trace except a quiet sense that something has gently passed. Inside one of the homes, a pot simmers slowly over a low fire. No one watches it constantly. There is no need. The cooking is steady, predictable. Occasionally, someone will stir it, not because it demands attention, but because it feels right to do so. The walls of the house hold the warmth of the day. Light enters through a small window, resting on the wooden table, highlighting its scratches and marks, each one the result of some ordinary, long-forgotten task. Nothing here is new. Nothing here is urgent. And yet, everything continues. Outside, the sky begins its slow shift. Blue fades into softer tones, hints of orange and pale pink forming near the horizon. It happens so gradually that no one notices the exact moment it begins. A man walking along the path pauses briefly, not because anything has changed suddenly, but because something feels different, quieter, perhaps, or simply more still. He looks toward the horizon, then continues on. The town does not react to the coming evening. It accepts it, as it always does. A door closes softly somewhere. Another opens. Footsteps come and go, each one blending into the next, indistinguishable from all the others that have come before. If someone were to stand still and listen closely, they might hear it, the subtle rhythm of a place that does not try to be anything more than what it is. No grand events. No sudden changes. Just the steady, almost invisible turning of time. And as the light continues to fade, the town gently prepares itself, not with effort or intention, but simply by continuing its quiet, familiar routines. Because here, in this uneventful day, nothing needs to happen for everything to feel complete. The late afternoon drifts quietly toward evening, almost unnoticed. The golden light that once stretched warmly across the town begins to soften further, fading into something cooler, gentler. Shadows, once long and defined, now blur into one another, merging with the dimming ground until they nearly disappear. No bell rings to announce the change. No voice calls it out. And yet, everyone seems to feel it. The day is ending. Not abruptly, not dramatically, but slowly, as if the light itself is growing tired. Along the dirt paths, movement becomes even more unhurried. The farmer, who had been making his steady return, has now reached the edge of town. The cart gives one last quiet creak before coming to a stop. He pauses for a moment, resting a hand on the wooden frame, as though acknowledging the simple journey that has just ended. The horse lowers its head slightly, still calm, still patient. There is no sense of completion, no clear boundary between work and rest, only a gentle shift from one to the other. Nearby, a door opens. Someone steps outside, glances briefly at the sky, then returns inside without a word. The gesture is small, almost meaningless, yet it carries a quiet understanding: evening has arrived. From within the homes, Small changes begin. A chair is moved. A pot is lifted. A window is closed halfway. Each action is simple, familiar, repeated countless times before. No one thinks about these motions. They happen naturally, like breathing. Thin trails of smoke begin to rise from chimneys, drifting lazily upward before dissolving into the fading sky. The scent of cooking becomes more noticeable now, carried gently through the air, blending with the coolness that begins to settle in. The children, once scattered and restless, have mostly disappeared indoors. One lingers a moment longer, standing near the edge of the path, looking out at nothing in particular. Then, without hesitation, they turn and walk inside, the door closing softly behind them. Silence deepens. Not complete silence, but a quieter version of the day. Fewer footsteps. Fewer voices. More space between each sound. In the distance, a dog shifts in its resting place, then settles again. Somewhere else, a wooden shutter taps lightly against a wall before finally coming to rest. The sky continues its slow transformation. Soft oranges fade into dusky pinks, then into pale shades of gray-blue. The horizon blurs, no longer clearly defined. The world becomes softer, less detailed, as though edges are gently being smoothed away. A man walking along the road slows his pace even further. Not because he is tired, but because there is nowhere he needs to be quickly. He passes by familiar houses, each one dimly lit from within. Through small windows, faint glows of candlelight begin to appear, steady, warm, and quiet. Inside one home, a family gathers around a simple table. There is no rush to eat. No urgency in their movements. Bowls are passed slowly. Hands move without hurry. Voices, if they are spoken at all, are low and calm, blending into the soft crackle of a nearby fire. The outside world continues to dim. Colors fade. Details soften. The town, which had gently stirred throughout the day, now begins to settle even more deeply into stillness. And yet, nothing feels like it is ending. There is no clear moment when day becomes night. Only a gradual drifting. A quiet transition. A slow letting go of light. As the last traces of the sun slip below the horizon, the town does not react. It simply continues unchanged in its rhythm, unchanged in its calm. Because here, in this uneventful place, even the end of the day arrives without interruption. Night does not come all at once. It arrives the way most things do here, slowly, gently, almost without notice. The last trace of daylight fades from the sky, leaving behind a deepening blue that gradually darkens with every passing moment. The colors do not disappear suddenly. They dissolve, as if the sky is quietly letting go of the day. The town grows still. Not empty. Not silent. Just still. Inside the homes, candlelight becomes the main source of warmth. Small flames flicker softly, steady but alive, casting slow-moving shadows along wooden walls. The light is not strong, but it is enough. Enough to see. Enough to feel safe. Enough to continue. A man sits near the fire in his home, his posture relaxed, shoulders lowered after a long day that required no urgency, only patience. He watches the flame for a moment without thinking of anything in particular. Then he leans back slightly. And simply rests. Across the room, someone gently folds a piece of cloth. The movement is careful, practiced, almost automatic. There is no rush to finish. The task does not demand completion. It simply happens, like so many other quiet tasks of the day. Outside, the wind moves lightly through the town. It brushes against walls, slips through narrow gaps between buildings, and carries with it the faint scent of earth cooling after the sun's warmth. Leaves shift softly in response, a quiet rustling that fades almost as soon as it begins. A lantern is lit along a pathway. Then another. Then another. Small points of light begin to appear throughout the town, scattered like gentle stars brought down to earth. They do not brighten the night. They simply exist within it, marking familiar places, doorways, corners, paths that have been walked for years. A lone figure walks slowly down one of these paths. Their footsteps are unhurried, measured, almost in rhythm with the quiet of the evening. They pass by homes where windows glow softly, where families have settled into the calm of the night. No one calls out. No one interrupts. The town respects its silence. Even sounds that do appear feel softened. A chair being moved. A cup being set down. A quiet voice speaking just loud enough to be heard in the same room, and no further. In the distance, the fields lie still under the darkening sky. The land that was busy only hours before now rests in complete calm. Nothing moves there except the faintest shift of wind across empty soil. Above it all, the sky deepens further. Stars begin to reappear, one by one, like memories returning to a familiar place. They are steady, distant, unchanged. They do not rush to fill the sky. They simply return in their own time. A man standing near his doorway looks up briefly. He does not count them. He does not search for patterns. He simply acknowledges their presence, then turns back inside. The door closes softly behind him. Within the homes, conversations fade as the evening continues to deepen. Words become fewer, then pause altogether. What remains is the sound of fire, the gentle shifting of bodies finding comfort, the occasional quiet breath of someone settling into rest. Time feels less structured now. Less defined. It does not feel like something passing forward anymore. It feels like something easing downward. The town does not resist this feeling. It welcomes it without thought. Outside, the lanterns continue to glow, steady and small against the vast darkness. They do not chase away the night. They simply exist within it, marking the presence of life in an otherwise quiet world. A final breeze moves through the street, softer than before. It touches the lantern flames, causing them to flicker briefly, then settle again. And then, even the breeze fades. The town is now fully wrapped in night. Not an empty night. Not a heavy one. Just a quiet, familiar night. A night that asks for nothing. A night that simply holds everything gently in place until morning returns once more. And so, the town rests. Without effort. Without urgency. Without interruption. The night settles even further now. Not in a way that feels heavy, but in a way that feels complete. As if everything that needed to quiet down has already done so, and what remains is only stillness itself. The town is asleep. Windows glow no longer. Fires have softened into low embers. Candles, once small points of life inside the homes, have been extinguished one by one, leaving behind the gentle darkness of rest. Inside the houses, people sleep in simple silence. Breathing slows. Bodies relax into familiar positions. Blankets rise and fall in the faint rhythm of quiet rest. There is no movement that is not needed. No sound that does not belong to the night. Outside, the streets are empty. The lanterns that once lined the paths now burn more dimly, their light softened by the passage of time and the settling of the air. They do not flicker in urgency. They simply remain, patient and small, marking the presence of a place that is now completely still. The wind has faded almost entirely. What little remains of it moves without direction, brushing lightly against rooftops and then disappearing again into the dark. Even the natural sounds of the land have grown faint. No footsteps. No voices. No distant movement of carts or tools. Only the quiet presence of night itself. Above, the sky is fully open now. Stars stretch across it without interruption, steady and calm. They do not feel distant in a way that is empty. Instead, they feel present in a quiet, enduring way, like they have always been there, and always will be. The moon, if visible, rests gently among them, offering a soft glow that does not brighten the world too much, but simply outlines it in faint silver. The fields beyond the town are still. Not even the grass moves noticeably now. The earth seems to rest in the same way the people do, completely, without effort, without thought. Far away, where the river runs beside the land, the water continues its slow movement. But even it seems quieter at this hour. Its surface is smooth, reflecting the sky in long, broken lines that drift and reform without hurry. The river does not sleep, but it feels as though it has entered a more gentle state of being. Everything is reduced to its simplest form. The world is not active. It is not waiting. It is simply resting. A single lantern near the edge of town flickers slightly, then steadies again. There is no one there to tend to it, but it does not go out. It continues to glow softly, as if keeping watch for the morning that will eventually come. Inside one home, a person shifts slightly in their sleep, then becomes still again. The movement is small, natural, part of the deeper rhythm of rest that the night holds for everyone equally. Time passes, though it is difficult to measure now. Without activity, without sound, it becomes something softer. Something that does not move forward loudly, but instead drifts gently from moment to moment. The town remains unchanged. Roof lines dark against the sky. Paths empty. Doors closed. Everything held in place by the calm of night. And somewhere beyond the edges of the sleeping town, the land continues its quiet existence as well. Fields rest. Trees stand still. The river flows without sound. The desert beyond remains vast and patient, holding the memory of heat and daylight but showing none of it now. Everything has slowed to its most peaceful state. And in this deep hour of night, there is nothing that asks to be done. Nothing that calls for attention. Only the quiet understanding that the world, in this moment, does not need to move. It simply needs to be. And so it is. Still. Soft. Uninterrupted. Resting beneath the wide, endless sky until the first hint of morning one day returns again. The deepest part of the night does not last forever. It never leaves in a hurry, and it never announces its departure. It simply begins to loosen, quietly, almost imperceptibly, like something gently releasing its hold. At first, nothing seems different. The town is still asleep. The streets remain empty. The lanterns continue their soft, fading glow, holding on to the darkness without resisting it. The sky above is still filled with stars, steady and unchanged, as if they have not noticed anything at all. And yet, somewhere far beyond what can be easily seen, the night begins to soften. It is not light yet. Not even close. But something has shifted. A slight easing. A subtle thinning of darkness at the edge of the horizon, where sky and earth meet in the far distance. At first, it is so faint it could be imagined. A barely noticeable grayness, resting low along the horizon line. Not bright. Not warm. Just, less dark than everything around it. The town remains asleep through this change. No doors open. No voices rise. No movement interrupts the stillness. Inside the homes, people continue to rest in the same calm patterns of sleep. Breathing steady. Bodies still. Wrapped in the quiet comfort of a night that has not yet fully ended. But outside, the world is slowly preparing itself. The river, which had been nearly invisible in the darkness, begins to reflect a slightly different tone. Not light exactly, but a softening of black into deep blue. The surface still moves gently, but now it carries a hint of something new. Even the air feels different. Not warmer. Not cooler. Just, less heavy. As if the night is no longer pressing down quite as firmly as before. A faint sound appears somewhere in the distance. A bird, perhaps. Only one note. Short. Simple. Then silence again. The sound does not disturb the town. It blends into it, as if it has always belonged there. The lanterns continue to glow, but their light now seems more delicate against the slowly changing background. They are still present, still steady, but no longer the only source of light in the world around them. The horizon shifts again. Slightly clearer now. Still not bright. Still not defined. But no longer fully dark. Time continues in its quiet way. Not marked by movement. Not marked by activity. Only by this gradual return of something that cannot yet be named. Inside one of the homes, a sleeper turns gently onto their side. A simple movement. Unconscious. Natural. Then stillness returns. The town does not wake. Not yet. But it begins to feel closer to waking than it did before. The kind of closeness that does not demand attention, but exists in the background of everything, like a distant memory slowly becoming present again. The river reflects more of the sky now. Subtle differences in tone appear across its surface. Dark blue blending with faint gray. The reflection is not sharp. It is soft, stretched, and calm. The land beyond the town remains quiet, but its shapes are becoming slightly more visible. Edges of fields begin to separate from the darkness. The outline of trees becomes faintly clearer against the sky. Nothing moves, but everything becomes easier to see. A single lantern flickers again. This time, it does not stabilize immediately. It sways slightly before settling back into its steady glow. The darkness around it is no longer absolute. There is something else now, something subtle and quiet that surrounds it. The beginning of morning, still far away, but no longer absent. The night has not ended. It is still here. Still holding the world. But it is no longer alone. And so, in this delicate in-between space, the world remains still. Not sleeping deeper. Not waking yet. Just resting at the edge of change. Waiting, without awareness, for the soft return of light that will soon arrive, as it always does, without rush and without sound. The change does not arrive quickly. It never does. It arrives the way most things do in this place, so gradually that it is almost not noticed at all. The darkness does not leave. It simply begins to lose its depth. The horizon, once only a suggestion of separation between earth and sky, becomes a little clearer now. Not bright. Not colorful. Just a slow easing into visibility. The town is still asleep. For now. No doors open yet. No footsteps cross the streets. No voices rise to greet the day. Everything remains wrapped in the final softness of night. But the night itself feels different. Lighter, somehow. Less complete than before. Inside the homes, people continue to sleep in calm, steady rhythms. Some lie still on their backs. Others rest turned gently to one side. The quiet rise and fall of breathing fills each room without interruption. There is no urgency in their rest. No pressure from the world outside. Only the natural, unbroken calm of early morning sleep. Outside, the lanterns still glow, but their presence is no longer the strongest light in the world. The sky has begun to take on a deeper shade of blue. Not bright yet. Not warm yet. But no longer the deep, endless black of night. The river reflects this change first. Its surface, once nearly invisible, now holds a faint mirror of the sky above it. The water remains calm, moving in slow, steady patterns, as if it is also aware of the approaching day. Along the edges of the town, shapes begin to return. Roofs become more defined. Walls separate from shadow. Paths that were once lost in darkness now reappear, faint but familiar. Still, nothing moves. The town does not awaken suddenly. It does not respond quickly. It simply begins to drift toward wakefulness, as if pulled gently by something it does not question. A distant sound breaks the silence. A bird again. This time, a little closer. Then another responds somewhere farther away. Their calls are soft, spaced apart, not urgent. They do not announce the day. They simply exist within it as it begins to form. Inside one of the homes, a person stirs. A small movement. A shift beneath a blanket. Then stillness again. But something has changed. Not fully awake. Not fully asleep. Just closer to the surface of awareness than before. The sky continues its slow transformation. The grayness near the horizon becomes more noticeable now. It spreads slightly upward, blending into the deep blue above it. Still no sun is visible. Still no direct light touches the land. But the presence of morning is now undeniable. It is there, resting quietly over everything. The lanterns begin to feel less necessary. Not because they have changed, but because the world around them has. Their glow remains steady, but it no longer defines the space they are in. It blends now with the growing light of dawn. The river, too, becomes clearer. Its surface shows more detail: small ripples, gentle movements, reflections stretching and breaking softly across the water. On the edges of the town, a single door opens. Just one. It does not happen loudly. There is no announcement. A person steps outside, pauses briefly, and looks toward the sky. They do not speak. They do not hurry. They simply stand there for a moment, taking in the quiet return of morning. Then they begin to move. Not quickly. Not with urgency. Just the first small step into the new day. Inside the homes, others begin to follow the same slow shift. Not all at once. Not in response to anything specific. But gradually, as if the town itself is remembering how to wake. A blanket is folded back. A chair is shifted. A pot is placed gently near the fire once more. Still no rush. Still no noise beyond what is necessary. The world outside is now clearly no longer night. But not fully day either. It exists in between. A soft space where everything feels suspended, quiet, and balanced. The sky brightens another shade. The outlines of the land become more visible. Fields, trees, and rooftops are now clearly shaped, though still softened by the early light. And somewhere far beyond the town, the first hint of the sun begins to gather behind the horizon. Not visible yet, but present. Waiting. And so the town continues its slow return. Not as an event. Not as a sudden awakening. But as something gentle, familiar, and deeply ordinary. A world moving from rest to motion. From silence to sound. From night to morning. Without resistance. Without hurry. Just the soft beginning of another day. The horizon changes first. Not suddenly, but with a quiet certainty, as if something has finally decided it is time. A thin line of pale gold appears where sky and land meet in the distance. It is soft at first, almost uncertain, like a memory returning slowly. The town is still quiet, but no longer deeply asleep. Morning is no longer approaching. It is arriving. Inside the homes, movement becomes more frequent now. Not hurried movement, but steady and familiar. A blanket is folded back completely. A wooden chair shifts slightly across the floor. A door opens, letting in the cooler air of early day. Still, there is no rush. The town does not wake like something startled. It wakes like something that already knew it would. Outside, the sky continues to brighten. The deep blue of early morning begins to fade into lighter tones. Pale gold spreads outward from the horizon, touching the edges of clouds that were not visible before. The light is gentle, not yet strong enough to cast sharp shadows. But it is enough to reveal the world more clearly. Roofs show their shapes. Walls take on their full color again. Paths that were softened by darkness now appear as they truly are, worn, familiar, and quiet from years of use. The lanterns, which had held the night together, now seem faint. Their glow is still present, but it is no longer needed in the same way. One by one, they are either left to fade or gently extinguished. The river reflects the growing brightness. Its surface, once dark and hidden, now shows the sky above it with soft clarity. The water moves slowly, carrying the first full light of the day in gentle ripples that stretch and dissolve without hurry. A bird calls more clearly now. Then another responds. Soon, the air begins to carry small sounds from different directions, subtle signs that the world is fully returning to motion. Inside the homes, people begin their morning routines. Water is drawn. Fires are rekindled. Simple meals are prepared. The scent of bread, warm and familiar, begins to rise again into the early air. These actions are not new. They are not planned in detail. They are simply part of the rhythm of life here. A rhythm that repeats without strain. Outside, the streets slowly come alive. A few figures walk along the paths now, their movements calm and unhurried. They greet one another with brief nods or soft words that do not carry far. There is no need for more than that. The day is not something to be entered. It is something already present, simply waiting to be noticed. The sky brightens further. Now the gold deepens slightly, spreading higher and wider. The horizon no longer holds darkness. It holds light that is still growing, still unfolding. Shadows begin to appear again, but they are soft, not yet strong or sharp. They rest gently against the ground, shifting slowly as the sun continues its rise. The town is fully awake now. Not in excitement. Not in urgency. But in calm recognition. The beginning of another day has arrived, just as it always has. And yet, nothing feels rushed. A man steps outside his home and pauses for a moment, looking across the quiet street. He adjusts his clothing slightly, then begins walking at an easy pace. A woman nearby hangs a cloth near a window, letting it catch the morning light. A child sits on a step, watching a small insect move slowly across the ground, completely absorbed in its tiny, ordinary path. Everywhere, life resumes its gentle motion. Not all at once. Not loudly. But steadily. As the sun finally rises fully above the horizon, its light spreads across the town in soft waves. Warmth returns to the air. Colors become richer. Details sharpen slightly, but never harshly. The world does not change into something different. It simply becomes fully visible again. And with that visibility comes familiarity. Everything is as it was before the night. And everything will continue as it has always continued. The town settles into its day without hesitation. Work will begin. Routines will unfold. Time will move forward in its quiet, ordinary way. But for this moment, this first full moment of light, there is only calm. A simple return. A gentle beginning. And the quiet understanding that another day has already started. With the sun now fully above the horizon, the town settles into what it always knows best. Ordinary time. Not fast. Not slow. Just steady, like a quiet river moving through familiar ground. The morning light spreads evenly across rooftops, fields, and pathways. Shadows are now defined but soft, resting close to the objects that cast them. Everything is visible again in its simple, everyday form. There is no sense of beginning something new. Only the continuation of what has always been here. Inside the homes, the last traces of morning preparations fade into completion. A bowl is set aside after being emptied. A door is left open for a moment to let in fresh air. A chair is pushed gently back into place. These are small actions, repeated without thought, forming the gentle structure of the day. Outside, people begin to move more freely through the town. Some walk towards small fields just beyond the houses, where crops grow in quiet rows. Others head toward workspaces or gathering points, where tools are already waiting. Their steps are unhurried. The ground beneath them is familiar. Each path has been walked many times before, and it remembers nothing new about today. It simply continues to exist as it always has. In the distance, the river remains steady. Its surface reflects the sky in a calm, broken mirror of light and movement. Small ripples pass across it, never disturbing its overall stillness. A boat moves slowly along one section of the water, guided by quiet hands. There is no urgency in its movement. Only direction. Only purpose. Back in the town, sounds begin to layer gently over one another. A wooden tool tapping against stone. A low conversation between two people standing in the shade. The faint rustle of cloth as someone moves through a doorway. None of these sounds dominate the air. They exist together, evenly spaced, forming a soft background to the day. Time here does not feel divided into sharp moments. It feels continuous. Like one long, uninterrupted breath. The sun climbs a little higher, warming the earth without intensity. The air carries a lightness that belongs only to morning, a time when everything feels open but not yet heavy with the fullness of the day. People do not hurry to fill the hours. They simply move within them. A man pauses near a wall, resting briefly in its shade before continuing on. A woman adjusts a basket, shifting its weight more comfortably on her arm. A child runs a short distance across a yard, then stops, as if the act of running itself was enough. Nothing needs to be completed quickly. Nothing demands urgency. Even work, when it begins, does so quietly. Tools are picked up. Materials are arranged. Tasks are approached with the same calm rhythm that has always guided them. There is no separation between work and life here that feels sharp or forced. They flow into one another naturally. Like morning becoming afternoon without announcement. Above, the sky continues its slow movement toward fullness. Not changing dramatically, but deepening in color and clarity. Light spreads evenly across everything, touching rooftops, trees, and open ground with a steady warmth. The world feels balanced. Not perfect. Not ideal. Just steady in its familiar way. And in that steadiness, there is comfort. A kind of quiet understanding that nothing needs to be more than what it is in this moment. The town continues its day. Not as a series of events, but as a continuous presence. One moment gently connected to the next, without interruption. And so time moves forward. Not noticed. Not measured. Just lived. As the morning settles fully into the day, the town moves deeper into its familiar rhythm. Nothing changes suddenly. Nothing calls for attention. Instead, life continues in small, almost invisible steps, each one fitting quietly into the next. The sun rises higher now, bringing a steadier warmth across the rooftops and open paths. The light is not harsh, but it is fuller. It reveals more detail: the texture of wood, the unevenness of stone, the gentle wear on objects that are used every day. In one part of the town, a small workshop is already active. The sound inside is calm and repetitive. Wood is shaped slowly, carefully. A tool moves against a surface in a steady motion, not rushed, not forceful. Each stroke removes only a small amount, just enough to bring the piece closer to what it is meant to become. There is no urgency in the process. Only attention. Only patience. Outside, another person walks along a narrow path carrying a simple bundle. They do not walk quickly. Their steps are even, balanced, as if they have taken this same route many times before, and they likely have. The bundle shifts slightly with each step, but it is held securely. Nothing about the movement suggests strain. It is simply part of the day. Nearby, a small group gathers in the shade of a building. They are not in conversation that rises or falls dramatically. Their words are spaced out, unhurried. One person speaks, then pauses. Another responds after a moment. Silence sits comfortably between them. No one feels the need to fill every gap in speech. The space itself feels natural. Elsewhere in the town, someone sweeps a small area of ground. The motion is slow and repetitive. Dust gathers into small lines, then is moved aside, then gathers again in a different pattern. The act is simple, almost meditative, as if the purpose is not only cleanliness, but order. A child sits nearby, watching the movement of the broom with quiet focus. Not interrupting. Not asking questions. Just observing. Time continues to pass in this gentle way. Not marked by clear transitions, but by shifts in light, in sound, in the position of the sun above. The river remains in its steady flow beyond the town. Unchanging in its movement, yet always different in its surface. It reflects the sky, the land, and the passing of time without holding any of them. In the fields nearby, small tasks continue. Hands move through plants, checking, adjusting, gathering what is ready and leaving what is not. Each action is small on its own, but together they form the structure of care that keeps life steady. There is no sense of hurry in the field either. Only awareness. Only repetition that feels natural, not forced. Back in the town, the sound of tools continues in the background. A soft rhythm of work that does not interrupt the calm atmosphere, but becomes part of it. Hammer against wood. Stone against stone. Cloth being folded. Water being poured. Each sound exists briefly, then fades, making space for the next. Nothing dominates. Everything coexists. The sun moves slowly across the sky, now reaching a point where shadows shorten slightly and the warmth becomes more even across the ground. People pause occasionally, not to stop the day, but to exist within it. A hand resting briefly on a wall. A moment of stillness before continuing. A breath taken without thought. These small pauses are not interruptions. They are part of the rhythm. As the day continues, nothing extraordinary happens. And yet, everything continues to happen in its quiet, steady way. Life here does not rely on moments of change. It relies on continuity. On repetition that never feels empty. On small acts that carry meaning not because they are large, but because they are repeated with care. And so the town moves forward. One gentle action at a time. One quiet moment after another. Held together not by urgency, but by the simple act of continuing. As the day moves further forward, something subtle begins to settle over the town. Not a change in activity. Not a change in sound. But a quiet shift in feeling. The work continues, as it always does. Hands still move. Tools still make their soft, familiar sounds. People still walk along the same paths, carrying out the same steady tasks that shape their days. And yet, beneath all of it, there is a deeper stillness. It is not something that stops movement. It exists alongside it. Like a calm layer beneath flowing water. The sun now rests higher in the sky, holding the town in a balanced light. Not the softness of early morning anymore, and not yet the long warmth of afternoon, but something in between, steady, even, patient. Shadows lie close to objects now, shorter and more defined. They do not stretch far or drift slowly as they did earlier. They remain near their sources, quietly following every shape. In a small courtyard, a man pauses between tasks. He does not sit. He does not leave. He simply stands still for a moment, looking at nothing in particular. His hands rest loosely at his sides. There is no expression of concern or thought on his face. Only pause. Then, after a short moment, he continues what he was doing, as if that pause had always been part of the rhythm of his work. Nearby, another person leans briefly against a wooden post. Not out of exhaustion, but out of habit. A moment of rest that requires no reason. The town does not feel busy in the way some places might. Even when many things are happening at once, they do not create noise in the same way. They layer gently over one another, forming a soft background rather than a sharp one. A cart rolls slowly along a path again. Its wheels creak in a steady, predictable rhythm. The person guiding it does not rush the animal pulling it forward. There is no urgency in the movement. The cart follows the road as if it has known it forever. In the fields beyond, the movement of hands through plants continues. Slow. Repetitive. Careful. The wind passes lightly over the crops, bending them just slightly before moving on. It does not linger. It does not disturb. It simply passes through, as if reminding the land that it is still part of a larger world. The river remains in the distance, unchanged in its patience. It reflects the sky without effort, carrying light and shadow equally across its surface. Small ripples appear and fade, never staying long enough to become anything more than passing impressions. Back in the town, the sounds of work begin to thin slightly. Not stopping. Just becoming less frequent. A tool is set down and not immediately picked up again. A voice speaks, then there is a longer pause before another responds. The rhythm of the day is still present, but it is softening. Not ending. Just easing. There is a difference between silence and stillness. Silence removes sound. Stillness allows it to exist without urgency. And here, in this part of the day, stillness becomes more noticeable. Even movement feels quieter. Even activity feels more contained. A woman walks across a courtyard carrying a small container of water. Her steps are steady, unhurried. She does not look around quickly or search for anything. She simply moves from one place to another, as if both places are equally familiar. A child sits nearby, tracing small shapes in the dust again, the same way they did earlier in the day. The patterns are not important. The act itself is enough. Time does not feel like it is passing faster or slower now. It feels level. Even. Held in place by the repetition of simple actions. As the sun begins to shift slightly toward the afternoon, the light grows a little warmer again. Not intense. Just more present. It touches walls, ground, and faces with a soft, steady brightness that does not demand attention. People continue their work, but there is an unspoken sense that the day is no longer at its beginning. It has moved forward. It is now in its middle. And in that middle space, everything feels more grounded. More familiar. More settled. Nothing new is expected. Nothing unusual arrives. The town remains exactly as it is meant to be. And within that steady state, there is a quiet understanding that life does not always need movement to feel alive. Sometimes, it is enough for everything simply to continue. Calmly. Quietly. Without interruption. The afternoon settles in without announcement. There is no clear moment when it begins. Only a gradual deepening of warmth, a slow stretching of time that makes the day feel longer, softer, and more reflective. The sun now sits higher in its steady path, and its light has changed slightly. It is still bright, but it no longer carries the sharpness of earlier hours. Instead, it spreads across the town in a wide, even glow, touching everything with the same quiet attention. Walls hold the warmth. Stone paths feel steady beneath slow-moving feet. Wooden surfaces show their texture more clearly now, each grain softly highlighted by the angled light. Work continues, but at a more relaxed pace. Not because anything has changed in urgency, but because the day itself seems to encourage a gentler rhythm. In one part of the town, a man pauses beside his tools. He does not sit immediately. He simply stands for a moment, looking at what remains to be done. His expression is neutral, calm, as if measuring not effort, but time. Then he resumes. Not quickly. Not slowly. Just steadily. Nearby, two people share a quiet exchange while standing in the shade of a building. Their voices are low and even. There are pauses between their words that feel natural, not awkward. Nothing needs to be explained fully. Everything important seems already understood. A soft breeze moves through the street again. It is warmer now than it was earlier in the day. It does not cool the air as much as it simply moves it. It passes through open windows, lifts the edges of cloth hanging nearby, and disappears again without leaving a trace. The river in the distance continues its slow, unbroken movement. Its surface reflects the afternoon light in a more golden tone now, as if the water itself has absorbed some of the sun's warmth. It does not rush toward anything. It does not resist anything. It simply continues, as it always has. In the fields, movement becomes even more measured. Hands move through crops with familiar care. Some tasks are repeated from earlier in the day, not because they were unfinished, but because repetition itself is part of the rhythm. There is comfort in doing something again. Not as a correction, but as continuation. A cart moves slowly along a distant path, its sound faint but steady. The wheel's rhythm blends into the background of the town, becoming one of many quiet layers that make up the afternoon atmosphere. Inside the homes, light shifts gradually as well. Sunlight enters through windows at a slightly different angle now, casting longer shapes across interior walls. Dust in the air becomes faintly visible when it passes through these beams of light, drifting without direction before settling again. A person inside a room sits for a while without moving. Not asleep. Not active. Just present. Their gaze rests somewhere without focus, as if the mind itself has softened along with the day. Outside, the town continues its slow progression through the afternoon. Not toward anything in particular, but through it. Time feels less divided now. There is no clear sense of beginning or end within the hour. Only a continuous unfolding, where one moment blends gently into the next. Even sound feels slightly softened. Voices do not carry as far. Footsteps seem less distinct. The world is not quieter. It is simply less sharp. The sun begins a very slow descent, almost imperceptible at first. Its position changes so gradually that it can only be noticed by looking away and then returning later. But even without noticing it directly, the town responds in subtle ways. Shadows begin to lengthen again, stretching just a little farther than before. The warmth of the air begins to ease. The light takes on a slightly deeper tone, shifting from bright midday clarity towards something warmer, more ember-like. People continue their work, but now there is a sense that the day is slowly rounding toward its later stages. Not ending yet, but moving toward rest. A woman gathers a few items together in a basket, her movements unhurried and practiced. She adjusts the weight slightly, then begins walking at an easy pace. A child nearby stands and follows after a short pause, as if deciding that movement is simply the next natural thing to do. Across the town, similar quiet transitions happen without coordination. Tasks are completed. Objects are set aside. Movements become fewer, but more intentional. The afternoon does not break or shift suddenly. It simply softens. Like a long breath slowly releasing. And in that softness, the town continues to exist exactly as it is. Ordinary. Steady. And completely at ease within the passage of time. The change toward evening is not sudden. It never is here. It begins in small, almost unnoticeable ways, as if the day is simply loosening its grip rather than ending. The sun has started its slow descent, though it still holds enough light to keep everything visible. The brightness of afternoon begins to soften, not fading quickly, but easing into a warmer, quieter tone. Colors shift slightly. Whites become gold. Stones take on a gentle amber hue. The sky, once bright and wide, begins to deepen towards softer shades of orange and pale blue near the horizon. The town continues its movement, but the rhythm has changed again. Not in what people do, but in how they do it. Steps are slower now. Gestures more deliberate. Voices fewer and more spaced apart. Inside a small home, a person gathers tools that were used earlier in the day and places them neatly in a corner. There is no urgency in the act. It is simply part of a natural closing of things, as if the day itself is quietly encouraging order before rest. Outside, a man walks along a familiar path, no longer carrying anything. His hands are empty, resting easily at his sides. He does not look around much. There is no need. The surroundings are the same as they have always been, just softened by evening light. In the distance, the river reflects the beginning of sunset. The water holds a deeper tone now, blending the fading gold of the sky with the darker blues that are slowly returning. Its surface remains steady, but the reflections stretch longer, more fluid, as if time itself is being drawn out across it. A few birds move across the sky, not in large groups, but in quiet pairs or small lines. Their movement is unhurried. They do not circle or linger. They simply pass through the evening air and disappear beyond the rooftops. In the fields, activity slows further. Hands that were once moving steadily through crops now pause more frequently. Tools are set down and left resting where they are. There is no need to finish anything quickly. What remains can wait. And so it does. Across the town, subtle signs of transition begin to appear. A door is left open longer before being closed. A cloth is folded more carefully than before. A conversation ends with a longer silence at the end, as if neither person feels the need to immediately fill it. The sun lowers further now. Not yet gone, but closer to the edge of the horizon. Its light stretches across the land in long, soft lines, casting elongated shadows that move slowly as the day continues to change. The warmth in the air begins to ease. It does not disappear. It simply becomes gentler, more balanced with the coolness that will soon return. Inside homes, lamps and small fires begin to be prepared. Not lit yet. Just readied. Placed where they will soon be needed, waiting quietly for the moment when natural light is no longer enough. The town does not rush this process. It understands it. Even without thought. A woman pauses at the edge of a doorway, looking briefly outside before stepping back in. Her movement is slow, unhurried, as if she is acknowledging the shift in the day without needing to respond to it directly. A child nearby sits quietly, watching the changing sky. Not speaking. Not moving much. Just observing the slow transformation of light into something softer. The sky continues its gentle descent into evening colors. Oranges deepen slightly. Golds fade into warm tones of red and soft gray. The horizon becomes more defined again, as the brightness of midday fully gives way to the character of evening. Everything feels closer now. Not physically, but in tone. In atmosphere. The town, the fields, the river, and the distant land all seem to rest within the same shared calm. And as the sun nears the edge of the horizon, there is a quiet understanding throughout the town that the day is not ending abruptly. It is simply arriving at its quieter form. One step at a time. One soft change after another. And so everything continues in this gentle space between day and night, where movement slows, light softens, and the world begins to prepare not for change, but for rest. The sun now rests close to the edge of the world. Not touching it yet, but near enough that everything beneath it begins to feel its final presence of the day. The light has changed again. It is no longer bright. No longer wide and open like midday. It has become soft, low, and deeply warm, spreading across the land in long, golden streams that stretch gently over rooftops, fields, and quiet paths. Everything it touches seems slightly slower. Softer. More still. The town does not change its routine in any sudden way. Instead, it continues to ease into evening, as if following a path it has walked many times before without needing to think about it. People move with a natural sense of closure. A few final tasks are completed without urgency. A door is closed more firmly than before, as though marking the end of a small part of the day. A chair is adjusted and left in place. A basket is set down near a wall, no longer needed until tomorrow. These are not final actions in a dramatic sense. They are simply quiet signals that the day is loosening its hold. Outside, the river reflects the deepening colors of sunset more clearly now. Gold blends into orange, and orange into soft red tones that drift slowly across the water's surface. The movement of the river remains steady, unchanged, but the reflection gives it a sense of warmth that seems to belong only to this hour. In the fields beyond the town, everything is nearly still. No active work remains. Only the faint memory of movement earlier in the day. The crops stand quietly under the fading light, their shapes gently outlined by the sun's last reach. A light breeze passes through once more. It is cooler now. Not cold. Just different from before. It moves through the town without effort, brushing against walls, slipping between narrow spaces, and passing through open doorways before fading again into the distance. The sky deepens further. The sun lowers inch by inch, bringing with it a soft transformation in the entire atmosphere. Shadows grow longer again, but they are no longer sharp or defined. They stretch out gently, blending into the warm tones of the ground. Everything feels closer together. Not in distance, but in feeling. Connected by the same fading light. Inside homes, lamps are now being lit. One by one. Not all at once. A small flame appears in one window. Then another. Then another across the town. These lights do not compete with the sunset. They do not replace it. They simply join it, offering a gentle continuation of visibility as the natural light begins to fade. The town now exists in both worlds at once. The end of day outside. And the beginning of evening inside. A man stands at the edge of a path, looking toward the horizon. He does not speak. He does not move for a while. He simply watches the sun descend, as if acknowledging something familiar and unchanging. Then he turns and walks slowly back toward his home. The final edge of the sun touches the horizon now. Not in a dramatic disappearance, but in a gradual lowering. As if it is gently being placed behind the earth rather than sinking beneath it. The light becomes thinner. More concentrated. Everything is bathed in a final, rich glow that feels almost like memory made visible. For a few moments, the world is held in this soft, golden stillness. Then, slowly, the brightness begins to fade. Not all at once, but step by step. The colors soften. The contrast reduces. The details of the land become less distinct. And the town begins its full transition into evening. People move inside more consistently now. Doors close with soft finality. Windows glow with steady, warm light. The outside world remains visible, but no longer dominant. It becomes something to look out upon, rather than exist within. And as the last visible edge of the sun disappears completely, there is no sense of loss. Only completion. The day has reached its end in the same quiet way it began. Without interruption. Without urgency. Just a slow, natural fading into night. And in that fading, everything remains calm. Held gently in the space between light and darkness. Waiting for the next quiet turn of time. The moment after sunset does not feel like an ending. It feels more like a pause. A long, gentle pause where the world is no longer bright, but not yet fully dark. The last traces of sunlight fade slowly from the horizon, dissolving into soft layers of blue and deepening gray. The glow that once filled the sky now lingers only in memory, as if the day is quietly stepping away without turning back. The town enters evening fully now. Not in noise. Not in change. But in settling. Inside the homes, the warm light of lamps becomes the center of each room. Small flames flicker steadily, casting soft circles of light onto walls and tables. Shadows move gently with every subtle shift in the air, never sharp, never harsh. Everything feels closer. Smaller. More contained. Outside, the streets grow darker with each passing moment. The shapes of buildings begin to merge with the night, their edges less distinct. Only the faint glow from windows and doorways gives them form. The paths between homes are still visible, but now they feel quieter, as if the ground itself has begun to rest. A few final movements occur outside. A door closes. A brief conversation ends. Footsteps cross a short distance and then stop. Each action feels like part of a closing rhythm the town knows well. Not forced. Not planned. Just understood. Above, the sky has fully transitioned. The deep blue of early evening has now become darker, richer, more uniform. Stars begin to appear again, slowly at first, then more steadily, returning to their familiar places without hurry. They do not shine brightly at once. They arrive one by one, as if the sky is remembering them. In the distance, the river reflects these changes once more. Its surface is darker now, holding only faint traces of light. Occasional ripples catch a soft glimmer from the sky above, then release it again into the surrounding darkness. The water continues its movement without interruption. Unchanging. Patient. A quiet presence beside the sleeping land. Inside the town, lamps are now fully established. Each home holds its own small glow. From the outside, the town appears as a collection of gentle lights scattered across the darkening landscape. Not bright enough to dominate the night, but enough to show that life continues within it. Movement inside homes becomes slower. More deliberate. A cup is placed down with care. A chair is adjusted slightly closer to the light. A blanket is pulled over shoulders without conversation. The energy of the day has not disappeared. It has simply softened into rest. Outside, the wind returns briefly. It is cooler now. More distant. It moves lightly through the streets, touching the edges of walls and passing through narrow spaces before fading again into stillness. The fields beyond the town are now almost completely invisible. Only faint outlines remain under the starlight, suggesting their presence rather than revealing it fully. The world outside the town feels vast again. Quiet. Open. Unoccupied. And yet not empty. Just resting. The sky above deepens further. Stars now fill more of the space, forming a steady, unchanging canopy over everything below. Their light is soft and distant, but constant. They do not move quickly. They do not change. They simply remain. Inside one home, a final lamp is adjusted slightly. Its flame steadies, then holds. The room settles into a calm, even glow. Voices, if present, are now minimal. Often reduced to silence between words. And eventually, even those words fade. The town does not fully sleep yet. But it begins to enter the edge of sleep. That quiet space where awareness slows. Where movement becomes rare. Where time feels less defined. Outside, the night is now fully present. Not as something heavy. But as something complete. A full return to stillness after the long, gentle journey of the day. And in this stillness, everything remains exactly as it is meant to be. Unchanged. Unrushed. At rest. The night does not deepen quickly. It settles. Slowly. Quietly. Like dust drifting down through still air, until nothing is left moving at all. By now, the town is almost entirely at rest. The lamps inside the home still glow, but their light has softened further. It no longer spreads far. It stays close to where it is needed, around tables, near beds, along the quiet edges of rooms. Everything beyond that gentle light fades into calm shadow. Inside each home, people are asleep. Not in the way of exhaustion, but in the natural surrender that comes after a long, ordinary day. Breathing is slow. Even. Peaceful. There is no tension left in the posture of sleep. No awareness of time passing. Only rest, steady and uninterrupted. Outside, the streets are empty. Completely still. The paths that were once walked so often now hold only darkness and faint outlines of their own shape. No footsteps cross them. No voices pass through them. Even the memory of movement feels distant now. The wind has faded almost entirely. What remains of it is barely felt, just an occasional, almost imagined shift in the air that passes without sound and disappears before it can be noticed fully. Above, the sky is at its deepest point. It is no longer the shifting blue of evening. It is a vast, quiet darkness filled with countless steady stars. They do not appear brighter than before. Only clearer. As if the world below has finally become still enough to see them properly. The river continues its slow presence beyond the town. It does not reflect much light now. Only the faintest shimmer of the sky above, broken into soft, drifting lines that come and go without pattern. It flows, as it always does. But even its movement feels quieter at this hour. Not slower. Just less noticeable. Inside the town, there are no new sounds. No new movements. Only the occasional faint shifting of someone deeper in sleep, then stillness again. The lamps continue their quiet work of holding small pockets of light in each home. They do not flicker with urgency. They do not struggle against the darkness. They simply exist within it, calm and steady. Time feels different now. Not absent, but unmarked. There is no sense of progression, only presence. The world is not moving toward anything in this moment. It is simply resting where it is. A single door outside remains slightly misaligned, leaving a narrow gap where darkness slips through. It does not matter. Nothing passes through it except air that no one notices. The town does not need correction at this hour. Everything that needed to be done has already been done. And now there is only quiet. Deep. Even. Unbroken. Far beyond the town, the land stretches outward into darkness without interruption. Fields, trees, and open ground all merge into a single, soft expanse under the night sky. Nothing moves there except the faintest suggestion of distant life, too far to be clearly known. The stars remain steady above it all. Not watching. Not waiting. Just present. And in this deepest part of the night, everything feels suspended. Not paused in anticipation, but resting in completion. As if the entire world has finally agreed to be still for a while. And so it remains. Quiet. Whole. Unchanging. Held gently in the long, soft silence of midnight. After midnight, the night does not change in any visible way. It only continues. Slowly. Evenly. without direction. The town remains in deep rest, held within the same quiet stillness that has settled over it for some time now. Nothing stirs beyond what is necessary for sleep itself. Small shifts of breath, the faint turning of a body, then stillness again. The lamps inside homes have grown even softer in their presence. Their light is steady, but faint, like something that no longer needs to announce itself. It stays close to the places it touches: walls, wooden floors, the edges of simple furniture, and leaves everything else in darkness. That darkness is not heavy. It is simply complete. Outside, the streets remain empty. There is no movement at all now, not even the smallest suggestion of activity. The paths that connected the town during the day now feel like quiet lines drawn through stillness, unchanged and unused. The wind is almost gone entirely. Only rare, subtle shifts pass through the air, too gentle to disturb anything, too soft to be clearly noticed. They arrive and leave without sound, without effect. Above, the sky holds its full depth of night. The stars remain in their steady places, unchanged and patient. Their presence does not increase or decrease. They simply continue to exist above the sleeping world, offering no urgency, no message, only distance and calm. The river, too, maintains its steady presence. Its movement is constant, but so quiet now that it feels almost like part of the night itself rather than something separate from it. Occasional faint reflections of starlight ripple across its surface and then disappear again into darkness. Inside the town, time feels even less defined. There is no sense of hour or progression. Only continuation. Sleep holds the town gently, evenly, without interruption. In one home, a small shift occurs: a blanket is adjusted slightly, then stillness returns immediately. In another, a faint sound of breath deepens for a moment, then settles again into rhythm. Nothing breaks the calm. Nothing changes the atmosphere. The town remains exactly as it is. And yet, even in this deep stillness, there is a subtle sense of distance from the absolute middle of the night. Not because anything is happening, but because something is slowly approaching. Not yet visible. Not yet felt in any direct way. But present in the quietest sense of time. The darkness is still full. Still complete. But it is no longer the same darkness that settled earlier. It has begun, almost imperceptibly, to soften at its edges. Not enough to notice clearly. Only enough to exist differently than before. The fields beyond the town remain motionless. The trees stand without movement. The land rests under the wide, silent sky, unchanged in form, unchanged in presence. Everything holds its place without effort. The night continues its slow passage. Not moving toward anything in particular. Just continuing. And in that continuation, there is a calm that does not ask for attention. A calm that simply exists. Deep. Even. Unbroken. As the longest hours of night stretch on, the world remains exactly as it is meant to be. Quiet. Still. And waiting not for anything specific, but simply for the natural return of change that will come when it is ready. The night is still deep. Still complete. Nothing about it seems to have changed at first glance. The town remains asleep, wrapped in the same quiet stillness that has held it for hours. Lamps inside the homes continue their soft glow, unchanged in brightness, unchanged in purpose. They do not push back the darkness. They simply exist within it. Everything feels steady. Uninterrupted. And yet, somewhere far beyond what can be clearly seen, something begins to shift. It is not light yet. Not even close. but the darkness itself begins to feel slightly different. Not heavier. Not lighter. Just softer at the edges. At the farthest line of the horizon, where sky meets land, a faint change begins to form. It is not color. Not brightness. Only a subtle easing, as if the night is no longer holding itself as tightly as before. The town does not react. It does not notice. It continues to sleep in the same slow, even rhythm. Inside one home, a person breathes in a deeper cycle of sleep, then relaxes again. Another turns slightly onto their side. The movement is small, natural, unnoticed. Outside, the streets remain empty. Completely still. But the air feels slightly different now. Not warmer. Not cooler. Only less dense, as if something distant is preparing without announcing itself. The river continues its slow motion beyond the town. Its surface remains dark, but the reflection of the sky is no longer entirely uniform. Subtle variations begin to appear, faint hints that something above is shifting, even if the change cannot yet be named. Above, the stars remain steady. They have not moved. They have not faded. But the sky around them feels less absolute than before. The darkness between them is no longer quite as uniform. It carries the smallest suggestion of transition. The first whisper of pre-dawn is not visible. It is sensed. Not by sight. But by presence. A quiet thinning of night that does not break anything, does not disturb anything, it simply begins. The fields beyond the town remain still. The trees do not move. The land rests as it always has during these hours, unchanged and unhurried. And yet, even here, there is a subtle openness now, as if the world is no longer holding completely still, but beginning to ease towards something else. Inside the town, nothing stirs fully awake. There is no interruption to sleep. Only the same steady calm that has carried through the night. But time, even here, feels slightly closer to movement than before. Not because it is rushing, but because it is returning. Slowly. Gently. Almost invisibly. A faint suggestion of change lingers at the edge of everything. Not forming into shape. Not becoming clear. Only existing as possibility within stillness. The lamps continue their quiet glow. The river continues its soft flow. The sky continues its slow, silent shift. And the town remains in its deepest rest, unaware that the longest part of night is now beginning to loosen, just slightly, in preparation for what will come next. There is no announcement. No signal. Only the smallest easing of darkness, so subtle it could almost be imagined. And yet it is there. The beginning of return. The first quiet breath of something that will one day become morning again. And so, in that quiet space between night and the first return of morning, everything remains still. The town sleeps without disturbance. The lamps hold their soft, fading glow. The river continues its patient flow beyond the edge of sight. And the sky, vast and silent above it all, carries the smallest hint that time is always moving, never loudly, never suddenly, but always forward in its calm, steady way. Nothing asks to be finished. Nothing asks to be rushed. There is only rest. Only presence. Only the quiet understanding that every ending is simply another kind of pause, waiting for whatever comes next. And in that gentle stillness, the world simply continues, softly, calmly, without needing to say anything at all.